Let's do the time warp again. Let's do the time warp again. It's just a jump to the right. And then it's to the right.
Put your hands on your hips.
And bring your knees in tight.
But it's the pelvic thrust
that really drives you insane. Hopefully we didn't lose you guys.
Let's do the time warp again.
Welcome back for Blood Sisterz podcast. What the blood?
What the blood?
This is our Halloween special. We are at episode 8.
Ooh.
Ah.
Episode 8. Oh my goodness.
How did we get here?
I don't remember. It's all been a blur up until now.
That's because we drink a lot.
Yeah.
Well, again, I am your host, Natasha, joined by my fabulous co-host, Christina.
What's up, everybody? Christina Mata.
Now, before you continue, please like, comment, subscribe to our podcast. We are on YouTube, Spotify,
Google,
Apple Plus,
Apple Podcasts.
Oh, damn it. I was
Apple
so close. I'm going to get it together
Podcasts.
one day. Apple Plus, Apple Podcasts.
Anywhere you listen to podcasts, we're more than likely on there.
Yes.
If you look us up, we'll appear. We're in a black and white photo. It says Blood Sisterz in white, and you can see us holding a pretend body.
Who says it's pretend?
We got to say it's pretend.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
It's
allegedly pretend. So, you guys may notice today it's a little different. There's a little void here in our hearts.
That's the sound of the void.
That's the sound of the void. Our beautiful co-host, Rachel Cherie, is out on vacation.
Out and about, chilling.
Yeah, sipping whiskey, flirting with boys, smacking behinds. Living a good life.
Envious.
Okay, we sit here in Wisconsin with snow already.
Wisconsin. Freaking flurries and shit today.
Christine, you want to explain how the audio will work with her?
Yeah, so she will be recording remotely. So we will kind of cut in her part of the episode as it appears. We're going to each be doing our own kind of story. Each story is going to be a true story that happened on Halloween. And we will insert her part when she sends it to us.
So wait, they're getting 3 separate stories?
You are getting a 3-for-1 this week. Wow. It is not 1, not 2, but 3. Tree stories.
You're welcome, world.
I know it's what you've always wanted.
Exactly. All right, so kicking us off, we got Miss Christina Mata. I'm excited to hear what story you have for me.
So, first thing I want to do before I start is I want to kind of correct myself for last week.
That's right.
We were talking about Leonardo Cingilli. We were talking about our cold-hearted question. The cold-hearted question was if you knew what date and time you were gonna die, would you want to know? And I was like, isn't that some type of Beowulf shit? But it wasn't Beowulf, it's Oedipus. So the story of Oedipus, just very, very short. Oedipus was born to this king. The king was told that his son was going to kill him and marry his mother.
Ooh, I think I know this. Okay.
Yeah, so the king takes this baby and puts him up in the mountains to die.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. So he was like, you're not going to kill me and marry my wife? Put you in the mountains, okay? Legit. So the baby was actually found by a shepherd and was basically adopted by another couple. And this other couple raised him like his own. And then later on in life, Oedipus got the same prophecy that he was destined to kill his father and marry his mother. So he left his parents. He thought that this was his parents, the parents that took him in. They thought that those were his parents, so he left them. He was like, I can't have that be my prophecy. I'm going to peace out. So as he leaves, he meets his actual father. They get into an argument and he kills him.
Wait, Peppa Piss kills his father, or his father kills Peppa Piss?
And Peppa Piss, a.k.a. Oedipus, kills his father.
Oh.
Yep. So the prophecy actually comes true anyway.
And he still married his mama.
Yep, he still married his mom. And then when they found out years later, they had one of their kids was Antigone.
Okay.
Oedipus and his mama had like 3 or 4 kids or something. And when they found out that that was actually his mom, the mom killed herself. And then Oedipus, I think he like stabbed his eyes or something. Yeah. So that's the story of Oedipus.
Sounds like a beautiful love story.
Yeah, beautiful. Absolutely. So we're getting 4 stories
redeemed
today.
herself.
Goodness
this week,
gracious.
ladies and gentlemen.
I know. Ugh, it's been a while since high school. Okay. So this week, my actual Halloween story has to do with the murder of Peter Fabiano, who was a hairstylist that owned 2 beauty salons in the Los Angeles area with his wife, Betty. Now, Peter was the one that got murdered. There's a bunch of drama that kind of goes on leading up to it, so I'm just going to start from the beginning.
Okay.
And we'll just go with the flow. We'll go with the story. So Peter Fabiano was a former U.S. Marine who was working as a truck driver in the late 1940s when he met Betty, and they were soon married. Of course, I really wasn't able to find much information about the couple's lives before the murder occurred and that their marriage occurred, but I did find that this would be Betty's second marriage, as she already had a daughter named Judy Solomon. And Judy will come up in a little bit. She didn't do anything wrong, but she comes up a little later. So just to know, that's Betty's daughter from her first marriage. Betty and Peter lived in Kingston for a little while, but later decided to move to Los Angeles in 1956 to open up a hair salon. For a little while, things were going great. So great that they opened up a second hair salon and had a wonderful team of employees. One of those employees was named Joan Rabel.
I like the name.
Joan Rabel. Kind of sounds like a rebel, right?
Yep.
So, yep. Joan was a 40-year-old photographer. She was kind of a dabbler, which kind of reminds me of myself because it's like I do one thing and then do another thing, you know. I read that she did photography. She was also a writer, and she also did some sailing for a long while. So she's just kind of doing all the things, okay? So she sounds really fun. She did some of that stuff for a while before she ended up in California looking for some part-time work. She was hired and soon became very close to the Fabiano couple. Although the happiness for this couple would not last forever. When Betty and Peter started experiencing marital issues, Betty moved out of the home and actually stayed with Joan because they were close friends. It was then that Betty and Joan actually had an extramarital affair. I think this is when Joan obviously really fell for Betty and thought that they might be together long term. However, Betty and Peter's split would not last very long. Betty admitted the affair to Peter, and they were able to reconcile their relationship under the condition that Betty does not see Joan again. So Betty goes with it, and she's like, Joan, I can't see you. I have to get back with my husband, and they're no more.
Are they still? Is she still working there at this time?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that they're like, you're kind of done.
Right.
It's after this ordeal that Joan meets Goldyne. It's her next BFF, Goldyne Pizer. Right. I love that name, Goldyne.
Some nice names in this story.
No. Very, very cool names. So Goldyne is a receptionist who was briefly married in 1944, but that relationship did not last. After she was divorced, she was known to date women. So Goldyne and Joan quickly became close friends who became even closer. Joan told Goldyne, all about the ordeal that she experienced with the Fabianos, and even went as far as to tell Goldyne that Peter was abusive and had an issue with narcotics. So for me, I just have to step away from the story for a second. At this point, it would be clear that Joan is not over Betty. Move on.
Right.
Like red flashing lights, you know. However, Goldyne is not this type of person. She seems to be a bit of a pushover, and she just kind of keeps going with it. I don't know if she's just really into Joan at this point. She's just like, I will listen to you. I will be there for you. But It's like, have you ever been with someone that was just obviously not over an ex and they won't stop talking about them?
Oh,
that
God,
was this
no.
situation. That was
Yeah.
Joan.
Oh,
Joan would
child.
not stop talking about Betty and Peter. She needed to chill.
Oh, Joan.
Joan. Freaking Joan. So, after about 4 months of planting seeds in Goldyne's head, Joan is able to convince Goldyne about what needs to be done. Joan gives Goldyne the money to purchase a gun. Goldyne purchases a .38 Smith & Wesson and states that she needs it for her own protection. So, fast forward to Halloween. Here we are. October 31st, 1957. Joan borrows her friend Margaret's car and drives it over to Goldyne's home. This way, Joan's car is in the driveway, and she can say that she's been home all evening. And of course, the neighbors are going to be like, yeah, she must have been home all evening. Her car was in the driveway. Joan brought with her a costume, okay? A makeshift costume. It's some blue jeans, a khaki jacket.
I thought she had a sheet over her head. I'm
Right.
sorry.
Sheet.
Sorry, blue
That
jeans.
would, you know what? She should have done something like that. Instead, she's got some blue jeans, a khaki jacket, red gloves, makeup, a hat, and some eye masks. So she just kind of looks like a fake ass superhero
Okay.
wearing jeans, you know.
Nice costume.
At least if you're wearing a ghost costume, just a sheet, you can't tell if it's a man or a woman.
True.
That's true. You know what? That would have been better. Anywho, Goldyne gets dressed into this whatever it is costume, and they drive over to Peter and Betty's house around 9 p.m. And they actually stake out the home and wait until the lights go out around 11. It was trick or treat that night in the neighborhood, and the last trick or treaters have gone home. However, there was about to be a straggler. So, the lights go out. Goldyne gets out of the car in her costume and rings the doorbell. No response from inside the home. She rings it a second time. Finally, she hears some shuffling to the door. As expected, it's Peter Fabiano. He's 35 years old at this time. Peter asks, "It's a little late for this, isn't it?" The masked person looks at Peter with a paper bag in her hand and simply replies, "No."
Oh.
Little does Peter know the bag has the gun inside that Goldyne is holding. Goldyne lifts up the paper bag, holds it up to him, and shoots him through the bag, hitting Peter in the chest.
Damn.
Yes. So, the sound of the gunshot has jolted Betty and her daughter Judy out of bed. Judy was living in the home at that time. Judy sees her stepfather on the floor and runs 2 doors down to a neighbor's house who is a police officer. The police officer then calls the police department. By this time, Goldyne has fled the scene with Joan in the borrowed car. Joan drops off Goldyne at home and they burn the costume. This part is some bullshit. So afterwards, they burn the costume. Joan simply says to Goldyne, "Forget you ever knew me," and takes off.
I'm finna tell on you now.
All right. Joan has facilitated what she thought was a perfect murder. She had an alibi and didn't even pull the trigger herself. Although Goldyne was left alone, heartbroken, with the murder weapon in her possession. She bought it herself. They did not have any plans as to how they were going to get rid of it. They thought of everything but this. So Goldyne just goes to a department store and drops it off in a lockbox.
Because that's smart.
Yeah, absolutely. Put it in a public place. At first, police had no leads for this crime. There were no shell casings on the scene, and the only witness was a 15-year-old boy who stated that he saw a car driving at a high speed around the time of the shooting, but that was the only information they had. Betty thought she heard the voice of a man imitating a woman, which would have been Goldyne. So I don't know if Goldyne just had a deep voice or what it was, but she thought it was a man imitating a woman. The murder resembled a gang hit, so they actually looked into Peter's background and found that he had a minor record for being a bookie back in 1948, but that was about it. There was nothing that would really tie him to a murder or why anyone would want to murder him.
I thought he was a thug.
Right. Nope. When asked if he had anyone that would want to hurt him, Betty just had one person in mind, which was Joan. She's like, that's the only person I can think of. So it was then that apparently an anonymous tip came in, and the gun was found at the department store then, and it was traced back to Goldyne. Goldyne was quick to spill the beans, and she said, it's a relief to get this off my mind.
Oh.
Yep, it's a relief to get it off my mind. Goldyne had not met Betty or Peter before, but she did plead insanity and stated, quote, I had no motive personally. Whatever motive I had was to please Joan. I was always easily influenced. I have been impressionable and always trusting. And even the psychiatrist who evaluated her would later document, quote, the only thought she had was that she had saved her friend, Joan Rabel, from an evil person. So that was her only thing. She really thought that she was just helping out her friend. She thought, well, AKA her lover, but she thought she was saving Joan from an evil person. Of course, during this time, lesbian relationships were taboo and not outwardly mentioned in the mainstream media. After the murder, the Los Angeles Times would go as far as to describe their relationship as abnormal, but that was about it. That's all they said. So everyone kind of made their own assumptions as to what that meant for abnormal. Both Goldyne and Joan would take a plea deal to lessen their charges from first to second degree murder and would receive sentences of 5 years to life. It's a crazy sentence, 5 years to life. So they were both later released, not sure when exactly. As far as Goldyne, it looks like she was released sometime in 1971 and went on to become an officer in the Miracle Mile chapter of the Professional Women's Club.
Oh, of course. Okay.
Yeah.
Just murdered a man,
right.
so that's good.
I'm a professional now. She died in L.A. in 1998 at the age of 83. Damn. Records also show that a woman named Peter Fabiano died in 1999 at 81 years old. And it seems that no further info can really be found on Joan Rabel. So maybe she went sailing again.
Right, she just disappeared.
She was like, toodles.
Ain't that about a
Bye.
bitch?
Yeah, so that's my Halloween story. Be careful for your trick-or-treaters. If you got a straggler, keep the door locked. Just don't answer.
Somebody show up with some blue jeans and a paper bag. Just stand
do
there.
It. Don't do it. Just
Damn, that's crazy. Aww.
So my cold-hearted question to you, Natasha, is if your boyfriend, lover, girlfriend, whoever,
I'm open.
they come, you go on a break.
Okay.
Let's say you're taking a break, and then after you guys are reconciling, they admit to you, while we were on our break, I actually, had relations with someone else.
Intercourse.
Yes, intercourse. I had intercourse with someone else. They said it just like that. Would you take them back?
We're on a break, right?
Yeah.
This is going to sound so bad. Only because I know myself, I would say yes, because although I would make them feel like poop for doing that, there's a 99.9% chance that I did the same thing. So I would, depending on how much I wanted to be with them, I would take them back only because they were honest, A, and B, I'm sure I did the same thing.
Yeah.
Because if you tell me break, I'm a flight risk. I'm like, okay, cool. I already had the next guy. I was
We're
gonna
on a
date
break
next anyway. So
yeah.
Yeah, I would. I probably would. Would you take them back?
Yeah, I think so. And I know this is going to sound really evil, but if later on down the line in the relationship, you can always use it.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, when we were on a break, you cheated on my ass.
Exactly.
So you can do this one thing for me.
You better wash those dishes. You
I
cheated
took your
on
ass
me.
back.
Yeah.
You can meet me halfway here.
I would definitely make them feel bad, like as bad as that sounds. I would definitely use that to my advantage. Like,
would you tell them if you had cheated on them too?
No.
No.
You were dumb enough to be honest with me. I'm not going to make that mistake. I didn't ask you for your honesty. I appreciate it, but I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm going to keep my damn mouth shut.
I'm an angel.
Exactly. I've been sitting in the house crying for 3 weeks, and you out there being a little whore.
How dare you? I thought I knew you.
Okay. Well, that's a good story. All right, so my story. So this is this is the story of Johnny Frank Garrett. Okay, he was born December 24th, day before Christmas, 1963 in Texas, to his mother Charlotte Joe Cameron. His father was unknown, so I didn't find any information, so I just said father unknown.
All right,
happens to the best of us. This poor boy, he had a rough life his entire life. He was given drugs and alcohol from people in his family when he was only 10 years old. Oh. So it's believed that he was given things that damaged the brain, such as paint thinners. And he was also physically abused to the extent of being beaten, then put on the burner of a stove, which caused a lot of scarring to his body.
It's disgusting.
And it gets worse. So as a child, he was also raped by his stepfather. Then he was sold to another man by his stepfather.
Sold?
Sold. His stepfather was kind of like, I guess...
So he was trafficked.
Yes, exactly. He was sold to another man, and he was forced to have sex with that man as well.
Jeez.
So at the age of 14, he was already forced to perform in demeaning sex acts, and he was also forced into child gay pornography.
Poor baby.
Yeah, he had it rough. So now we fast forward a few years, and that brings us to the murder of Sister, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing this, but I believe it's Tadea Benz, and she was murdered on Halloween night in 1981. Now, Sister Angela Martinez, she became worried once Sister Benz missed chapel, so she decided to go and check on her to be sure that everything was all right. She was shocked to see the door of Sister's convent room closed. Now, Sister Tadea, she always kept her door open because she was hard of hearing, so she needed to be able to hear the morning buzzer. So Sister Angela Martinez, she opened the door and she was not prepared for what she saw. She testified that she went into shock and could not think of what to do once she found a naked Sister Benz on the floor with her arms stretched out by her side. A quote from her was, "It was too much for me. I was in shock." So 4 other nuns then came in, wrapped the sister's body in a sheet, cleaned up the spots of blood on the floor by her body, and they believed that the 76-year-old nun had just died from a fall.
Yep. There's blood everywhere. And
cleaned it up. She just died from a fall. She was 76.
She fell naked.
Yeah, exactly.
She just decided to take a stroll while naked.
She just fell.
And fell. Okay,
Yep.
sure.
So Sister Florentine, she then discovered a broken window later that day in the community room, and she realized that someone had broken in. So they called the police to investigate the break-in, and of course, they told them about the dead, naked nun that they found on the floor earlier that day, right? No, they did not.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Sister Florentine actually said she thought about it, but she hesitated as everyone thought that the nun just died of natural causes and the 2 cases were not related.
Yeah, it looked like someone broke in and, the only evidence that we have is a dead nun, but I really don't think that those 2 are related.
Right. So we're just not going to say anything. Just investigate this break-in and you guys go.
All right.
So they cleaned up the entire crime scene, scrubbed away DNA, everything. Wrapped the nun's body, already were preparing her for a burial.
It's a crime scene, sisters.
Found a broken window and they were like, oh, these are not related. Just some little hoodlum broke into our church, our convent. So the cops did overhear some of the nuns talking about the death of the sister. And then when the autopsy was conducted, they actually discovered that she had been raped, beaten, and strangled. She actually was stabbed, too. One report I seen said that she was stabbed and the knife was eventually found under the bed.
Oh, goodness. Do you know where she was stabbed at all?
No, I do not. I didn't see it.
I was wondering, if you think they would have been able to see that she was stabbed.
Exactly.
But, right, there's so much blood.
And she's naked. So that's why I only found one report that said she was stabbed. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense because you would be able to see that on the body.
Right.
And they found her the next morning, so I'm pretty sure it was still warm and she probably was still not bleeding, but it would have been a fresh wound.
The sisters might have also just been like, oh, I'm not going to look because she's naked. I'm just going to wrap her up in a sheet right away and bless
I
her
could
heart.
see that too. I didn't think about that. I'm being unfair to the sisters. That's right. They're kind
That's
of
you and me though. We would have been like, "What happened? Let's inspect the body.
Open her
Let's see.
legs.
Are there any wounds? What's going on?"
Exactly. Yeah. So a few months earlier, July 9th, 1981, Narnie Cox Bryson, who was 77 at the time, she was also raped and murdered in her home down the street from the sisters. So originally the police targeted and tried to pin the murder on one of the many Cuban refugees living in Amarillo at the time. But on November 9th, 1981, Johnny Frank Garrett, the poor boy we talked about earlier, he is arrested and charged with the murder of Sister Tadea Benz. Now, this case was so shocking because young Johnny at this time was only 17 years old when he was sentenced to the raping and the killing of the nun. I know. He had a hard
baby.
life. Yeah. So he was arrested because a witness claims that they saw him running from the convent that evening. So his defense attorney, Bill Collius, he believed, probably mispronouncing these names, but who cares, right?
Right.
He believed he was only suspected because he lived right across the street and he had a criminal record. So the police claim Garrett confessed to the crimes and admitted to saying the Lord's Prayer while he was raping the sister. Garrett denied this, and he said he only admitted to robbing the convent 12 hours before the sister was murdered. And at that time, he said he was drunk and high on LSD when he broke in just to steal a stereo. That's all he wanted. He was just trying to steal a stereo, not hurt anyone. And the confession that they claimed he'd given them, he never actually signed. So far, it's just their word versus his.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're saying that he confessed, but he's like, but his lawyer's like, he never even signed that. You guys just said that and presented it as evidence.
He was also drunk and high, though, so maybe he did. He might not have remembered.
Right. We'll get there. It gets better, girl.
Okay. Ooh, okay.
Put on your seatbelt.
I'll shut up.
So, no, keep talking.
I'm excited.
I like it.
It's very
so during
exciting.
the trial, they attacked this character because he was a troubled teen who had a record, of course. So it's easy for the jurors to see him as someone with motive and capable of committing this horrible crime. So in September 1982, Garrett is convicted in the murder of the sister and sentenced to death. His mother begged jurors not to kill him. She shouted how much she loved him over and over. And once he was convicted and told he would die by lethal injection, he actually pushed the book in front of him. He hit it hard to the side and he shouted, "I did not kill her, man." It was like a very emotional scene in the courthouse between he and his mother. A human rights organization described him as a severely mentally handicapped. And one of his lawyers, Warren Clark, actually said he's simply too crazy to kill. They felt he was insane and suffered from multiple personality syndrome and from all of the physical and sexual abuse he suffered as a child. This kind of was the leading factor in why they felt he was mentally unstable. Mm-hmm. And the Supreme Court ruled at that time that a person who was insane and cannot comprehend the reasons behind execution cannot be put to death. And a mental health expert described him as one of the most virulent. I don't know that word. Virulent?
How is it spelled?
It's virulent.
Virulent?
Yeah, that sounds good. I like
virulent.
That. I like learning new words, so you guys tell us how to pronounce it.
Right?
I should have looked it up before now, but I was like,
us?
Let's find out on the air how we pronounce this word,
Right?
shall we? Histories of abuse and neglect that he had encountered in 28 years of practice. But the prosecutor said that he was not normal. But he also, while he was not normal, he was completely aware of what he did and understood the consequences from that crime. Now, here's some crap for your tushy. Okay, you ready?
Oh, okay.
Information about Johnny's abusive childhood was not made available to the jury.
What?
Yep. So they only knew about his criminal history and nothing about his mental state or why his life even turned out the way that it did.
Why would they frame it that way? Didn't the defense have that information?
So for some reason, they were not allowed to present this information to...
Why not?
And even if his defense we'll get there, his defense was kind of... They were state appointed, so they kind of were just like, "Man, we just kind of doing the bare minimum. We think you kind of did it anyway." Yeah.
So you're not doing your job, though.
Exactly. And it was also later discovered by the police. The police at this time, they had concluded that it was a Hispanic male who had beat 10 women in Amarillo in their homes, and black hairs were actually found at both of the scenes where the two women had been murdered. Garrett was white and had brown hair. So Ralph Erdman, a West Texas main forensic person in the 1980s, he ended up pleading no contest to falsifying autopsies and tampering with evidence after serious omissions were found in about 100 of his cases. Yeah. So many of those cases actually came with felony convictions. So Erdman discarded semen samples taken from Sister Benz and testified that he threw the samples out because no one told him to save it. Yeah. They didn't tell me to save it, so I just threw them in the trash.
Yeah, it's not like that would be important at all. No.
And years later, when he was actually asked about the case, he claimed he didn't recall anything.
Sounds like a big dummy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, an hour before Johnny was supposed to be executed on January 6, 1982, Governor Ann Richards granted a shocking reprieve, and she wanted the board to actually consider commuting his sentence to life in prison. The board went on and voted 17-0 for the death sentence again.
What?
Yep. So even though the Catholic Diocese of Amarillo, they were against the death, as well as the Pope John Paul and the nuns from even the nuns from the Sisterz convent, they were like, "Yo, don't kill him. We trying to do appeals for clemency. We don't want him to die." They ruled again. They were like 17-0. No, we want the death penalty.
What the heck?
So 1 month later, on February 11th, 1982, with no more appeals, 28-year-old Johnny Garrett is executed by lethal injection for the murder of Sister Tadea Benz. The state of Texas had no problem convicting and killing a mentally disabled juvenile. Garrett was the 44th person put to death in Texas since the Supreme Court allowed the resumption of capital punishment in 1976, and that was, at that time, that total was the highest of any state.
Wow.
So Garrett's famous last words were, "I'd like to thank my family for loving me and taking care of me, and the rest of the world can kiss my ass."
Sounds about right.
Exactly.
Sounds like he's got it together more than a lot of these people.
Yeah.
Right.
He was saying enough for his last words to be like, "I know I didn't do this. Y'all can kiss my ass. My family, I love y'all, but the rest of y'all can kiss my ass."
Love my family, but y'all can kiss my ass.
Exactly. And
Seriously.
Kiss your ass indeed, Darren, because 12 years after he was executed, Jesse Quackenbush.
Quack.
He went on to free his name, in an attempt to free his name. He said, "The old and newly discovered evidence of Johnny Frank Garrett's innocence is so compelling, it will cause even the most bloodthirsty proponents of the death penalty to shake their heads in doubt." He went on a hunt, and he wanted to reset the DNA evidence that was found that day, and he wanted the actual person who committed these crimes to actually be brought to justice. So the DA for the Potter County District Attorney, Rebecca King, she claimed that they were not hiding anything, but there were certain procedures of criminal and civil law that have to be met. So she would not release anything from that crime scene until the judge decided to reopen the case. Now, if you don't have anything to hide, why are you not releasing this information?
Right. If you don't have anything to worry about, just release your shit.
Exactly.
It's not that hard.
Now, it gets crazier, y'all. You ready for this? Starting to wrap up.
Okay.
Now, remember we talked about 77-year-old Narnie Bryson, right? The one who was killed down the road from the sister?
Yeah.
Just a few months before.
Yeah.
So the DA at the time thought that the women were killed by the same person because the murder was so identical. Narnie was beaten, raped, and strangled with a telephone cord. She also suffered several broken bones during the attack. Okay. Leoncio Perez Ruda.
Oh.
I know, yeah, don't check my names, guys. He was in jail after, in March 2004, authorities matched his DNA with semen samples collected from Narnie's murder. He was a Cuban refugee and fit the description that the cops said all this time.
I even wrote a note as I was listening to you talking. I said, "Blame refugees?" ? Because
when I first was reading this case, I was like, that seems kind of racist. They just blame it. But they were right this time.
Oh, shit.
Yep. So this is one of those things where even though it was kind of racially motivated,
yeah,
they were right.
Oh,
it was a Cuban refugee all this time. And the hair that they found at the scene actually went with that. But they were like, no, we're going to pin it on this 17-year-old white guy.
It's so unfortunate, though, that he had broken in around that same time, too. So it just kind of tied him in. And
yeah, just to steal a stereo.
Yeah, and it just kind of sucked him into the whole thing. And the timing was really, really bad.
Yeah.
Really bad for him.
Poor guy. So on January 3rd, 2005, the Cuban refugee guy we talked about, he pled guilty to the rape and murder of Narnie Bryson. He went on to admit to Quackenbush in an interview that he raped and killed a nun on Halloween night as well.
Quack.
So Jesse Quackenbush went on to create a film called The Last Word to clear Johnny's name and exonerate him. He states, this kid got dealt a crummy hand and his lawyers were mostly uninspired, incompetent, or simply did not care.
Yeah. Obviously.
Right. They didn't even present any of this child's prior trauma to the jurors.
I feel like you and I should just be lawyers.
We should be.
Be much better than
or at least
these
get
fools.
paid.
Yeah, like get paid like lawyers to do our podcast.
Okay.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Okay. Like, comment, and subscribe. Follow our Instagram page, Blood Sisterz Podcast. Blood Sisterz with a Z. Okay. Another quote that I like from Quackenbush was, I would not hesitate to estimate that there are probably dozens of cases out there where bodies need to be dug up. But who's going to do it? Nobody has the money or time. So I'm hoping with this one case, people will start to realize that was just a bad error. And Amarillo and the Panhandle. Not just here, but Lubbock as well. So here's this lawyer admitting, like, Texas, we fail a lot of people. We have just been executing people left and right and forcing these guilty verdicts with bad evidence.
And for what? Just so that you can close a case and say that you closed it?
Exactly.
That's bullshit.
Now, the hair and semen samples collected didn't matter because the experts testified that the samples could not have been exclusively linked to Garrett. That's just another little fun fact.
Link this.
Right. Now, Garrett's sister, Janet Dobson, who was 12 at the time of his arrest, she said her brother didn't finish high school and had a history of petty crimes. She also described him as a little slow and a follower. The most important thing that they wanted this film to show was that her brother was innocent. The family still lives in Amarillo, so they feel that the film did bring them closer to closure. His sister says she isn't bitter anymore, but she and her mother both cannot forgive those who killed Garrett until there is an official apology.
Is there any apology?
There has not been.
Fuck them.
Exactly. And so a quote from her is, if you're going to sentence somebody to death, you need to make sure they're guilty of that crime.
You'd think that would
not need to be said.
You'd think that would be like 101.
Exactly.
Lawyer school 101.
Right.
Whatever it is.
And that, my friends, is the story of Johnny Garrett, the innocent man convicted of murdering and raping the nun on Halloween night, 1981.
Rest in peace, baby Johnny.
Yeah, baby Johnny. His entire life was just bad from start to finish. This poor baby did not have a chance.
Dealt a shitty fucking hand.
Absolutely.
Ugh.
Now, my cold-hearted question this week for you, Miss Mata.
Okay.
Inside jokes. If someone very close to you, I don't want to give a name or anything, but someone who really means a lot to you in life, if they were wrongfully convicted of murder and executed, if the opportunity presented itself where you could seek revenge on the people responsible for lying and getting them convicted and ultimately murdered, would you do so?
I think I might.
Wow.
I think I might because, you know what? One person got wrongfully convicted. Let's see if I get rightfully convicted. Let's see how the system handles it.
I like
Fuck
that.
'em.
Eye for an eye.
Fuck the whole system. At that point, if that were to happen to a loved one, I'd be like, fuck the whole system. I don't give a shit.
I know that's right. I don't know why I thought you would be like, well, no, because I want to take the high road.
No, not today.
I like that answer.
Nope.
I like that craziness in you.
Let's see what happens. Yeah.
Huh.
At least even if for some crazy reason the system worked their correct way and it somehow, got me, they somehow arrested me for it. You
can go out with a smile on your face.
Who gives a shit? Yeah, I would just be like, well, I got my revenge. Who fucking
I know
cares?
that's right. I like that answer. I think I would do. Not I think. I know I would do the same thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Give me a gun and an address, I'm there. Like, you guys have been that probably wasn't even the first time, and that will not be the last time. So in my mind, I'm kind of like a martyr, and I'm like, I'm going to save another family from going through the same hell that my family just went through.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody got to pay.
Yeah.
Oh, poor little Johnny. Okay. Well, that's our 2 Halloween specials.
Yeah. And we will go forward with our buddy Rachel, who is on vacay. Rachel, get it.
What you got, girl?
My Halloween horror story is about William B.J. Liske. We're going to just refer to him as BJ through this segment. Bill and Suzanne Liske got married in 2001. Bill is BJ's father, and Suzanne is his stepmother. Suzanne has 2 boys, Devon and Derek Griffin. BJ resented Suzanne from the beginning. He had become a problem child once Bill got remarried. He started skipping school and misbehaving, much so acting out of character. For example, in 2002, Bill called the police because BJ threatened to harm himself. However, when the police got there, he attacked the police, causing him to face assault charges in a juvenile court. In 2004, he got into a physical altercation with his stepmother, and 2 months after that, he was charged with assault and robbery for hitting her with a coffee cup and stealing her car. He was found incompetent to stand trial, and those charges was eventually dropped. BJ has a laundry list of offenses, including the attempted attack on Suzanne in the shower in 2006. His father put him out, but still applied for guardianship over him, and the application quotes, "Mr. Liske wants to protect William and get him the help that he needs. He would eventually like to see him in a halfway house or a group home." When William is on his medication, he really does well. After a while, he stops taking the medication because he thinks he's okay, and he starts drinking and smoking pot. Bill got his son into a halfway house in Sandusky, and he went to see him often. Just side note, he had gotten into physical altercations with his father right there at the halfway house. BJ is just a problem child. Anyway, one week Bill took some vacation time, and he decided to go to the family cabin in Carroll County, that's in Ohio. And this cabin they use strictly for hunting. They went there to hunt deer, and he actually picked up his son to go with him. So it was just them 2 at the cabin. They returned home in Ottawa County October 30th, but Bill didn't take his son home. They actually had a little gathering in the yard with some neighbors and some friends. Bill had too much to drink, so he didn't take BJ home. In Sandusky, he actually had him just stay the night. They made him a pallet out on the couch, and he stayed the night there. Now, normally he wouldn't stay the night because of his violent outbursts. And he and Suzanne don't get along. He and his stepbrother Devon also don't get along. No, not Devon, Derek. He and Derek don't get along. This weekend, Devon was at his father's house. He was spending time over at his father's house, and that Sunday, October 31st, Halloween, he came home to change his shirt so he can go sing in the choir. Gunshots were heard that morning by Michelle, a neighbor that was also at the party. She heard those gunshots at about 6:30 in the morning. Devon comes home at about 9:30 in the morning to change his shirt. He was only there about 5 minutes, so he didn't encounter anybody but BJ. And he said BJ was upbeat and happier. And he asked him where he was going and how long he was going to be gone. And Devon thought it was strange because he says BJ is normally gloomy, slow, and darkish. So it was just a little strange for BJ to, be talking to Devon about where he's going and his whereabouts. He just thought it was strange. Devon only spent about an hour and a half at church, and when he came home, he went right to his game, right to his PlayStation or whatever he was playing. And he didn't realize that the house was a little too quiet until about 1:30. So he was on that game for a little while playing, and the house was a little too quiet for him. So he headed straight for his mother's room, and he noticed that the covers was covering, was over her face, over her and Bill's faces. So he's talking, he goes in the room and he's talking, probably like, hey, Mom, like, are you awake? Are you getting up anytime soon? He's probably just being casual. And when he gets over to her bed and he pulls the covers off of her face, he sees a bunch of blood. He sees she's laying in blood. And at first he thought it was a Halloween prank. But it was too much blood and it was way too gory. And he realized it was not a Halloween prank. So he leaves the house, runs out of the house, and he calls his aunt, Aunt Lori Morse. She came by the house, and he told her what happened. She's consoling him, and then she called the police. When the police got there, they discovered the gruesome scene that BJ created. Bill was shot in the head 5 times, shot in the head and his face. Super close range, 1 to 2 feet. And he was in a sleeping position, so that means BJ shot him in his sleep. The gunshots clearly woke up Suzanne, and she was shot 3 times in her head, but the way her body was, she was like sprawled, so she wasn't sleeping. The gunshots woke her up, and he shot her back down. When the police went to Derek's room, they noticed that the door was locked, so they had to kick the door in. And Derek was found curled up in the bed. He was beaten to death with a claw hammer. And they found the bloody hammer in the house, and the hammer matched the wounds, this claw hammer. They did not find the .22 caliber gun that BJ used on his parents. Deputies found BJ at the family cabin with an uneaten Subway sandwich. So this man actually had the nerve to go get food after he butchered his entire family, except one. My questions before I go on was why he didn't kill the 16-year-old. He killed Derek, and Derek was 23 at the time, and he did not kill Devon. And because the gunshots was heard at 6:30 in the morning, then that means he killed them early in the morning, and maybe he waited for Devon, or he was gonna wait for Devon, and maybe he decided not to. Maybe he didn't want to kill Devon. I have no idea why he let Devon go free. And he was actually happy to talk to him. So maybe Devon wasn't, a pest in his life. Maybe everybody else was. Anyway, BJ was held on a $3 million bail bond. At first, the bond was just $1 million. He was only charged with killing his father, and then the next week, it spiked up to $3 million, $1 million for each death that he caused. He was charged with multiple counts of aggravated murder for each death, and there was actually a gag order on the prosecutors and defense team. No one was able to talk about this case outside of the courtroom. Before BJ was to stand trial, he needed to go through a psychiatric evaluation before March 18th. William was evaluated first at the Court Diagnostic and Treatment Center in Toledo, and then at his attorney's request at the Twin Valley Behavioral Health Care in Columbus. Based on their reports, Ottawa County Common Pleas Judge Bruce Winters ruled that Liske was competent to stand trial. Prosecutors wanted death. They wanted him to have the death penalty. They wanted him to suffer for what he did. 3 people slain one day for no reason. He got to go. BJ did plead guilty for the death of each member in exchange for the death penalty being removed. The defense team asked for mercy, and that's the only mercy that they got. September 14th, 2011, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And March 31st, 2015, at age 29, BJ killed himself in his prison cell. And that's it for that story. My thoughts on Mr. William B.J. Liske. I just do not understand why he decided to kill his family the way he did and when he did. His father had took some vacation time. They had went hunting. I read that they had killed one deer, and they were actually going to go hunt more on that Sunday. They had a good time, from what I read. They had a good time. Everything was fine. Even the neighbors said that the party that they had ran smoothly. And there was no problems. Derek was not at the party because, he and BJ didn't get along. So, of course, the party should have gone smoothly. They let him stay the night, Everything was fine. And then he kills the family. Why? I want to know why. Everything was fine. And he killed them early in the morning and then went and got food. He did not care. And he even said in the courtroom that he wasn't sure why he killed his family or his dad, and that he loved his dad, and maybe it had something to do with his mental illness. I just don't feel like you can blame your mental illness when you did it on purpose. And by the way, he even raped Susan after he killed her. He raped her. This boy is sick. And as far as I'm concerned, he deserved everything that he got, including killing himself, because that was just very evil.
Wow. Well, thank you, Rachel, for that wonderful story there. Thank you. Bless your heart. Hope you're having fun on your vacay.
We miss you.
Yeah, we miss you. Long time. Come back soon.
Right?
Bring me a magnet. That will do it for this episode of Blood Sisters. Woo, 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 woo. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as search for us anywhere podcasts are found, which would be Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, wherever else you find podcasts, we're there.
And be sure to follow our brand spanking new Instagram page.
Insta.
At Blood Sisters with a Z podcast on Instagram.
Blood Sisters Podcast.
Happy Halloween, everyone. I am Natasha Carr with
Christina Mata.
Flirting with Darkness and promoting weird brown girl joy. Until next time.
Peace.